Okay. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. I'm K Rain, and welcome to You Have Me Beat. So today we're making a beat like Brat. Okay. um, so let's talk a little bit about Brat. Brat, came out 2024 by Charlie XCX, and Charlie XCX, she's known for making a lot of hyperpop music, but Brat pretty much was like a toned down version of what she normally does. It was just electronic pop, and it had influences of like dance pop, house, etc. Um, but yeah, I wouldn't say Brat was my favorite Charlie XCX project. It's pretty okay. I would say my favorite project of hers is definitely How I'm Feeling Now. The time that it came out, middle of the pandemic, I felt like it was like perfect. It's a good mix of what makes hyperpop, with its like sort of abrasive nature, but also very like bubbly at the same time. That contrast just works so well. Um, but yeah. So before we get into this beat alone, let's just talk a little bit more about hyperpop. It's such a niche, right? I feel like if you're new to hyperpop, you might want to dive a little bit deeper into how it came about. But I would say essentially where, the early becomings of hyperpop would trace back to like nightcore music. Nightcore music is just sped up music in general, but specifically sped up electronic music, right? Now, if you're familiar with the Gummy Bear song, I would say that's my earliest exposure to nightcore music. Um, when I was in probably like grade 7 or grade 8, that's when I first heard it. I was like, wow, this is insane, and it was so weird at the same time, but like I loved it, and I just kind of like deep dived on YouTube and I found a sped up version of the Gummy Bear song. So for me, I would say that's where hyperpop started for me, right? And then I feel like if you're clicking on this video, you probably are familiar with PC Music and AG Cook. So yeah, you know, early, I want to say 2012, 2013 or so. That's when hyperpop, at least the little micro genre, started, picking up more notoriety and more attraction, if you will. Yeah. So, but this beat alone, it's kind of like a mix of two different worlds, right? So at the time, upon creation, this was like fall of 2024. I was kind of deep diving into like new metal and just like metal in general, and then yeah, I was also flirting with the idea of kind of like, you know, mixing two worlds. So hyperpop as like the core foundation, but with the drums and the rhythm, it's very metalcore based. So I had the idea of, fusing the two and just kind of essentially creating hyper metal. And I don't think that's a thing yet. So if it becomes a thing, you know where it came from, right on this video. Okay. Um, so let's play a bit of this beat, and then we're gonna try and reconstruct it using what we already have here. Yeah, so that's the beat. It's pretty cool. I was kind of inspired by a lot of different things. Um, Outside of what it's doing sonically, it's taking inspiration from like a lot of video games and like scene core culture as a whole. Like the mid 2000s kind of emo stuff, and also just like nightlife in Japan, which I've never been to, but it's just from the pictures and just media in general, it's just so vibrant, so cutesy. But yeah, hyperpop and just hardcore music in general, what they share in common is speed, right? Essentially, and I just felt like, why not just blend two worlds together and just try to make something a little bit different? Um, I know synth punk is a thing, industrial music. There's all sorts of industrial music out there, but over here, I feel like I was doing something a little bit different, right? Just a little bit different. Um, and in the course of the song, if you dabble in just like rock music production or anything more alternative leaning, you can tell that these drums definitely have like a realness to them. And the way I designed it, I didn't really quantize the beats. I didn't quantize the drums. So if you're new to just music production in general, when you quantize drums or any kind of sounds in the mix, that just means you're pretty much aligning everything in the piano roll to hit, on beat with a metronome, right? But I didn't quantize anything, so the drums are kind of, it's doing its own thing and sounding really realistic, yeah? But for this video, what I was thinking would be a really cool challenge is to try and reconstruct not the whole beat, but just a part of it using only what I have in this mix, right? We're not gonna use any other sounds, just what I have over here. And then maybe the second half of the video, I'm gonna show you how you can like craft a melody or foundation from scratch and pretty much make some cool little tweaks along the way. So first, let's just start off with the drums, okay? So before I tweak this whole thing, we're gonna copy the whole song and move it over here. Okay. Now let's go back over here. Again, I don't want to rework the whole beat, maybe just like the chorus section. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to take, if you look at the waveform of the drum, you can see all the times that it's hitting. Just want to grab like the biggest hit. So, wherever it peaks. For me, I feel like it's around here or so. So let's just grab that. Using the slicer tool, we're just gonna do that. Okay, so now we have a kick drum and we can just align it where the chorus starts. Now sometimes this happens where like the wave isn't exactly aligned, but I feel like that's natural. If you want it to be exactly precise, you can just keep dragging it until you get to where it actually hits. But I kind of want to keep it like that. So it's a little bit, it has a little bit more swing to it and not so mechanical. Okay, so just so we're sticking to what I had vision for this beat, or for this new beat, we're gonna mute all the other percussion sounds, so we can focus a little bit better. There we go. And like I said earlier, like the way I designed this original beat, I didn't really quantize much. So, for example, if I were to put on the metronome, and let's just mute the drums right here. But if I were to put on the metronome, see how it's a little bit quicker than the metronome? That's proof that, you know, I really tried my best to make it sound real. So obviously it's not hitting on every beat. So it's going to be a little bit tricky to recreate, you know, something on top of what I already have, but that's the challenge, right? Oops, sorry. That part, yeah. I slowed it down a little bit and I got back to the pace. Okay, that's not too bad, right? Again, it doesn't have to be exactly on beat. Okay, we'll just leave it like that for now, but I want to change the, you know, the tone of the drum. It's sounding a little bit not the way I want it to sound, at least not for Brat. So just to make sure we're not losing sight of where we are, double click, and it's gonna grab that whole section and loop it. Sure. Okay, so in this video, I don't really want to rely too much on, you know, external plugins. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna use this little section here, specifically the time stretching tools, right? So this is accessible for everyone. If you have the demo, whatever, you're gonna have this, right? I do mess around with this quite a lot, actually. So let's just talk about what each of them do individually. They're all, you know, under this umbrella of time stretching, but they work They work differently. So pitch, it's pretty straightforward with the pitch. It's just the tone of the sound, like the tone of, let's say, the kick, right? We're changing the tone, but it's actually not gonna change the duration, right? It's not gonna alter how long it takes for the kick to hit. It's just gonna change the sound of it. The velocity, right? But it doesn't change the duration. See, it's still in place. The waveform's still in place. Let's just put back to normal. Time is actually gonna change the whole duration. See, it's and yeah, when you do that, see, it's not gonna pick up where we left off because the whole waveform has been stretched out. So yeah. But yeah, time, it stretches out literally the whole duration of the wave, and it tweaks it changes the sound too, right? Now, multiplier or multiplicator does a bit of all three. Well, pitch and time. So the other two. But with multiplicator, it still doesn't really. It changes the duration just a little bit, but not crazy like the time did. And it also changes the pitch a little bit. See the wave? It's kind of like shifted a little bit. That's the time. That's the effect on the time. Like it's trippy stuff. But I feel like the main thing I want to focus on is the pitch, because I don't want to lose the momentum we have here already. So yeah, let's just find a cool pitch to make the drum stabby. See, it's hitting a little bit more. And on top of that, we also have different kind of modes, right? But I don't want to get too far into this stuff because a lot of it's kind of unnecessary. Okay, that should be fine for now, whatever. We can align it a little bit, more acutely later. Now let's go to the snare. Now the snare sound, yeah, it sounds really realistic. So what we want to do, we want to tweak it in a way in which, not to make it sound not realistic, but just more like Brat, more electronic. Hold on. Okay. That's cool. Oops. Those are two of these here. One sec. It's perfectly imperfect, right? Okay. With the hats or the sims, let's choose one. Okay, let's just rework the symbols for now. Okay, we're gonna just take one symbol hit and leave the rest. Kind of sounds like a broken, I don't know, something broken. It has like a glitch core feel to it. Now what I can do, if you really want to fit it more on the beat, let's just cut part of the pad out and keep the original part and bring it back in like this. Okay, not like that. Like that. See how that sounds. Yeah, see, it's more on beat now. But you don't always have to make everything on beat, you know. I would say some of the coolest beats that I ever heard are like really off center, you know. Hold on one sec. It doesn't want to move. Okay, whatever. Yeah. another thing you can do too, um, if you find yourself in a situation like this where the drums aren't exactly the same in both of these parts, what you can do, well, if you don't like how it sounds, I'm saying, you can just erase and copy paste. It's a little bit more, you know, on the beat, but it doesn't have to be, right? Yeah, so I feel like that's the only section that I would, you know, want to rework for the sake of time. And we did that only using the time stretching tools. Yeah. So far though, I wouldn't say this sounds, you know, like Brat, but we're making a beat like a Brat. You know what I mean? Doesn't have to sound like Charlie's Brat. This is our Brat. We're brats, okay? Making beats like a Brat. Yeah, that's fine. Okay. So another thing I wanted to add in this video, I already talked about it, but if you have nowhere, like if you don't know where to start, you know, when it comes to building a melody from scratch, let's do that right now. Okay, so we're gonna make a new pattern. Let's call it Poppy. Click on what you just created, bring it into the mix. Now, because this is more of like a tutorial video, I'm gonna mute my pad so we can kind of create a new melody from scratch together. These stretching tools don't really want to work with me today. Okay, we're just gonna add into it. Okay. Add sampler. And originally my pad is set to track number 2, so we're gonna do the same thing. We're gonna set our new poppy sound. Hold on. To track number 2. So in this little channel rack, it's also good to rename your tracks as much as you can. So we're also gonna call this Poppy. Now, hold on one sec. Let's find a plugin, okay? So usually you wanna stick to some of these, right? SimSynth is cool. Sawyer is cool. Citrus, all these are pretty cool. Let's try the SimSynth, okay? Okay, let's try this guitar chorus. Why did it go over there? It should be over here. That's weird. Okay, well in that case, let's put that at number 2, and we're gonna Okay, let's just delete that and call this Poppy then. Okay. And now control click, piano roll. Actually, what I'm gonna do first, let's just highlight this section that we want to work in, so that's kind of looping perfectly. And then let's add in our melody. It's a bit off. My bad. There we go. So when it comes to actually building a melody from scratch in the piano roll, what I like to suggest is think of like a ringtone, right? And we're not talking about the ringtones that we have today. Ringtones of like, you know, the 2000s or the late 90s, just like really simple and memorable, right? Don't overcomplicate things. Like a 3-note melody is a good thing to start with. Okay, that's not too bad. We're just trying to match it to, you know, my very off-center drums, right? That works for me. Cool. Okay, so we have a little core foundation for this new beat, right? Now, another thing you can do, I'm going to show you real quick. Clone what you have already created. So normally when you clone a pattern in FL Studio, it's just going to default it to number 2, number 3, etc. But I don't like how that sounds. We're just going to call this extra poppy, yeah? And we're also going to throw this in the mix. Now for extra poppy, what I want to do, I want to give it another, I want to throw in another track, right? So to do that, you want to clone what you already have in the original Poppy. Well, Extra Poppy has the original Poppy, but you have to clone it again. Alright, clone it again. Also call this Extra Poppy. And Extra Poppy, we're going to set this to track number 10. Okay. And now you want to clone what you already have in the Extra Poppy that's in Poppy. Copy, paste into this, and then delete this. Well, not delete, just cut. Okay? So now Extra Poppy, it's set to track number 10. There we go. And now, go back to the piano roll. And with this really cool tool, just watch this, yeah? We're gonna select everything in this Extra Poppy piano roll. Hit this little drop down arrow, edit, no, tools, arpeggiate. That is it right here. Okay, watch this. Sorry, it's muted. Let's try that again. Obviously, it's way too loud. There's nothing in the mix. So yeah, it's pretty cool. You don't have to use the whole thing that they arpeggiated for you. You can mess around with this. You can remove some stuff. It's not really necessary, but it's a cool little addition to, you know, what you already have. But I do feel like in this scenario, it is a little extra sounding, air quotes. So I'm just gonna mute it. All right. Because less is definitely more. Less is definitely more. Yeah. Okay, I think that's pretty chill. So what we're gonna do now, let's play the original beat, and then we're gonna play this new section of the beat. So this new section of the beat, let's just get rid of everything else that we don't really need. Extra Poppy, we'll keep it, whatever. Let's get rid of the pad. And then use the slice tool and make sure it's aligned with where the section starts, the chorus, and where it ends. There you go. Just get rid of everything else. Cool. And we can bring this back. Oh. Hold on. What's going on? Why is it tweaking out right now? There we go. There we go. My bad. There's cool. The only other thing we have to do now, so now because what we did to the drums, it's still set to the same track. So what you can do is just clone the drums again and change it all, but that's gonna take too much time, so I'm just gonna do this. You know, put it back to normal. And then same thing with the snare. Put it back to normal. As well as the Sims. Put it back to normal. I think that's everything we tweaked in this video. Alright, so this is the original beat. Actually, you know what? I'm just gonna play the chorus, the original chorus, alright? Okay, cool. Now let's go back to our new chorus. Now we have to tweak the drums again. I actually don't recall exactly what I did, but we're just gonna try and remember. No, I actually don't really remember. So if that happens to you, what you can do, you want to go File. Sorry, it's a little cut off at the top, but File. No, not File. Edit, Undo. And keep hitting Edit, Undo, or Command Z until you get to where you want it to go. And that's not it. Sorry, I'm using my Mac, so you want to do Option Command Z. Okay, now this is our new chorus. So yeah, quite the contrast. But I would say this is still pretty clean, you know. Now, is it a Brat beat? That's for you to decide. Personally, I would say, you know, it falls more in line with, you know, the Charlie album, which I believe maybe was 2 years before Brat. Sorry, not 2 years before Brat. 2 years before How I'm Feeling Now, I believe. Yeah. because that album was, flirting with a lot of 80s sounds, 80s tones and textures. I feel like what we just did with the snare and I guess the new poppy little melody going on here has that feel, you know? I think I prefer this. Okay, yeah, so I feel like that wraps up this video, you know. Um, yeah, deconstructing beats and reworking them. That's something we can definitely do a lot more of. It is a little bit more tricky when you're reworking beats that aren't on beat, if you know what I mean. But that's fun because we pretty much recreated our own beat. You know, we're beating to our own drum. Yeah. Um, yeah. Beat like a brat. Um, yeah. So if you like this video, if you felt like you learned something, or if you just enjoy the vibes, hit a like, subscribe. You can follow me on my account, my Instagram account for this channel. It's just at You Have Me Beat. And you can also follow me on my main YouTube channel, K-Rain Sound. And if you're interested in getting, music production lessons where I'll teach you everything from the, from the get-go, just send me an email to krainsound@outlook.com. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Okay, thank you for tuning in. We're gonna do so much more, again, like I said in the last video. Yeah, thank you.